I'm Russell Huber. I'm your 32nd MC, 29, 28. Anyway, so glad for y'all taking the time to be here with us today. This is a celebration of a long-awaited milestone for the Forestry Commission. Also, really a celebration of the power of partnerships. So, at this point, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Scott Phillips, our State Forester and Executive Director of the Forestry Commission, who, along with our previous State Forester, will share the story of this historic achievement. Scott?
Thank you, Russell. I appreciate that. Good morning. Glad to have all of you here this morning. Before we begin, I want to recognize a few of our distinguished guests. Van, you're supposed to be up here. We're pretty informal. We'll get things going here. But so behind me back here, I'm going to turn around and look. So starting over here, we have Van Page, Vice President of the South Carolina Forestry Association of South Carolina. Right beside him, Commissioner Walt McPhail. Right beside him, Senator Jeff Zell. Right beside him, Mike Neese, Representative Mike Neese. Two representatives from Blanchard Caterpillar here, and they didn't give me your names. so we'll go from there. Right here in the center, we have Representative Bill Hickson. He is the chairman of the House Ag Committee, great partner for us. Beside him, Jess Neville, Commissioner Jess Neville from the upstate. Brett Dossier? I can't pronounce that. Lesperance? Yeah. Brett with Dauntless Air. He's the CEO of Dauntless Air, one of our partners here. We also have Daryl Jones, our Protection Chief, Forest Protection Chief for the Forestry Commission. Eric Smith, Chairman of the Forestry Commission, and retired State Forester Gene Kadama. So we appreciate all of you being here this morning and for your continued support of our wildfire mission here in the state of South Carolina. I also want to thank Owens Field and Jim Hamilton-LB Owens Airport for their partnership and for hosting us today. We appreciate your continued support for the Forestry Commission and our wildfire support mission, our wildfire response mission. Daryl Jones will talk more a little bit about that partnership with Owens Field here when he does his remarks in a few moments. Today we're here to celebrate a significant milestone for the South Carolina Forestry Commission. 100% of our frontline firefighting dozers are now in closed cabs, and every one of them is within the 15-year safe replacement cycle. Yeah. That's a big deal. This milestone has been more than 15 years in the making, and it would not have happened without a vision and a strong commitment to safety. That vision began long before I became state forester. It was created by our next speaker, embraced by the Board of Commissioners, supported by the General Assembly and by Governor McMaster, and carried forward by the dedicated employees of the South Carolina Forestry Commission. While I may be the one breaking the ribbon at the finish line, I'm just one of many who carried the baton in this marathon of a relay race. When I became state forester in 2018, we were about halfway there. 49% of our firefighting units at that point in time were in closed cabs, and 27% of our dozers had exceeded their 15-year safe replacement life. Many more were approaching that benchmark. As a career Forestry Commission employee and wildland firefighter, I was already fully committed to this vision because safety was, and still is, my number one priority as state forester. My role in reaching this milestone was simply to run the last leg of the race, to communicate how critical these pieces of equipment are to the safety of our firefighters, and to strategically position the agency for a strong finish. I often compare the enclosed cab dozer to a bulletproof vest that our law enforcement officers wear. It's an essential piece of protective equipment that gives our firefighters a much better chance of going home at the end of the day. These enclosed cabs protect our firefighters from heat, from smoke, and in case of a burnover, from fatality. It increases their likelihood of survival if there's a fire that flashes across that unit. Working with the governor and members of the General Assembly, including several standing here with me today, we were able to establish a predictable replacement cycle for these vital units, moving this effort from an annual funding challenge to a long-term plan. That plan brought us to this milestone and ensures that our fleet will remain within the 15-year safe replacement cycle. It has also allowed us to build on the original vision by modernizing our fleet, further improve the safety of our firefighters and the citizens we serve. South Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the nation. And as our population grows, more people are building houses next to our forest and our agricultural lands. Then this increases both the threat of wildfires and the complexity of our wildfire response. Operating safely in this increasingly complex environment requires more tools. And one of the more important assets that we've added has been rapid response aerial firefighting capacity. Beginning in the fall of 2024, the Forestry Commission added 2 contract single-engine air tankers to our wildfire response capability. These aircraft can be strategically positioned throughout the state during periods of peak wildfire activity, allowing us to respond quickly to wildfires, to keep them small, and increase the protection of homes and the firefighters on the ground. Last year was the first year that we had those firefighters in season, and they proved their value very quickly. Today you will see these aircraft. They're displayed back here behind us. Unfortunately, I don't think the ceiling's going to allow them to get off the ground and to do a display for you this morning. But they're out there for you to go out and take a look at. So I want to finish up by thanking Governor McMaster, the members of the General Assembly, our commissioners, and our many partners. Without your support and commitment to firefighter safety, this milestone would not have been possible. Again, this milestone began with a vision created by our next speaker and embraced by the agency for many years. Using my earlier analogy, he was our leadoff runner in this long race, and today we celebrate reaching the finish line. Please join me in welcoming retired state forester, Gene Cadon.
Thanks, Scott, and appreciate that, and thank you to everybody that's here and for coming out this morning. Enjoy this cool morning. And I want to thank Scott, the Forestry Commission as well, and the Governor's Office, all the legislators, and Scott mentioned partners as well. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this process. It is a true milestone for the protection of South Carolina citizens, our forest resources, and the value that they bring both economically, socially, and environmentally. Upon becoming the state forester in 2008, I'd worked close to 30 years in forest products industry and had a lot of familiarity with wildfire because I was with Westvaco Corporation that took that very seriously. So I was just very blessed to have that experience and be able to bring it to state government kind of level. And there's 3 things. Scott mentioned safety first. When I come into anything, and these folks that work with me, normally I try to identify 3 things like the Marines do. Let's get 3 things in our head and we can keep that in there. And first one was safety. The second one was the resource protection and development. And the third one was the better recognition of forest industry, the number of jobs, economic development, economic impact that it brought to the state. I figured that if the time I was here, if we could get those 3 things done, we'd do well. And I came to find out that within South Carolina law, it explicitly says those things in those laws, that those are things we're supposed to work on. So that match was a very good one for me. But the goal and the quest of having all firefighting bulldozers within a safe replacement age of 15 years, it actually started looking back at some of the information that my friends at the commission sent me. It started back in 1996. So that's 30 years ago when the legislature appropriated funding for a 15-year replacement cycle for that firefighting equipment. But it didn't happen because equipment costs were rapidly rising, a lot of budget challenges, so it didn't happen, but it was at least out there. So when I became the state forester in January of 2008, there were very few dozers that were less than 15 years old, and many were in poor condition and not reliable, and they all had open cabs. I remember explicitly when Tom Patton, the deputy state forester, we were talking about sending tractors, and we would say one fire needed 2 or 3 tractors. You better send 4 to 6, because either the tractor was going to fail or the transport unit was not going to get that tractor to the fire. That was a really eye-opener for me, that we had to send almost double to have what we needed for a wildfire. So we started working very earnestly and hard on that. the corporation that I worked for knew about wildfire hazards, and they protected the forest as well as the citizens that were around, as well as their workers with that fire control capability that they had, and Forestry Commission was doing the same thing. In fact, in 1995, it was a really bad wildfire year, and I was on a lot of fires in Jasper County, Hampton County, Carleton County area. And one of my friends I was in high school with at Berkeley High School in Moncks Corner, South Carolina, was also working for the Westvaco Corporation. He was running a bulldozer, and he got trapped. The fire overran him. He had an open cab dozer, like that one sitting right over there, and the fire overran him and 2 or 3 others, and he did not make it out. He died. If he'd have had it, if he and those other fellows that were with him would have had an enclosed cab, they could have got in that cab and they would be here today, I think. So that became something for me as my incentive to try to do all I could do to not ever let that happen again. Jess Neville and I were talking this morning about risk. In business and life, there's a lot of risk, and the more risk you can get off the table, the better your chances are for success, the better your chances are for nothing bad happening. And if something ever goes wrong, the last thing should be a piece of equipment went down. We need to have the best we can possibly have for firefighting. I know Representative Hickson knows this very well as a firefighter too. So anyway, every time I would hit an obstacle, I had a picture of my friend, his monument in my folder. And I'd pull it out and say, I'm not giving up. It took several years to do it, but with his help and everybody's help, it has happened. That was a tough year, 08, 09, 010, and 10, because we were in the Great Recession. But since then, I think we were able to do that because the governors, current and past, helped us. The legislators helped us. We recognized the issue. We recognized the opportunity to fix it. We knew what to do. It would just take funding and some planning to make it happen, to eliminate those older dozers with the open cabs. And it could have been done. I thought about this last night looking at the numbers. I think we had around 175 dozers back then. It would have been kind of easy to say, well, let's just cut it back to 100 or 150, take less money. But that would leave open areas in the state not covered. So I'm really pleased to say that we stuck with it, to say up that close to the 160 mark. That's what we need roughly to cover our state. So we did not take a shortcut. We did that because we felt strongly about safety of employees, care of the forest, and that sort of thing. So I retired in 2018, and I think Scott said we were about halfway there at that point in time. But Scott and our partners, legislators, Governor McMaster's picked up the ball and have pushed it to the goal line. And it really makes me feel very, very happy and elated, I would say, and really relieved to see this happen, that we've reached this milestone. And I would believe that those folks, not just in South Carolina, but during the time that was there were other firefighters that lost their lives too in other states. And they would be looking down on us and saying, well done. Thank y'all for being here.
Thank you, Gene. My name's Darrell Jones. I'm the Forest Protection Chief here at the Forestry Commission. Gene hit on a lot of important things. I'd like to start out that, we're in a risky business. We put out wildfires. There's no way for that to be safe. And my vision is to make sure that our firefighters are well trained and they are well equipped to do everything possible to prepare them for the situations they get into. And we respond to thousands of wildfires every year. And we don't do it alone. We do it with our friends in the fire service. Every fire we go to is other agencies with us, the local fire department and law enforcement, emergency management, other people that have part of the jurisdiction and part of the responsibility. So our role, my role, is to make sure that we're training our firefighters and giving them the best we can to allow them to do their job as safely as possible. So to do that, we have a lot of partners, and I'd really like to stress some of the partnerships. Our friends from the National Guard back here in the back, we have a long-standing partnership with the South Carolina Army National Guard and their aviation units that have really helped us over time, going back many years to help us provide water when we didn't have any other way to get it. And just for context, we fight fires with bulldozers, and we don't use water a whole lot. If you're a firefighter on the ground and you're in a bad spot and you know water's coming, it's a really good feeling. However it gets there, you need that help and you're in a bad situation, it makes you feel better and increases your safety. So I'd like to recognize our partners in the Guard. We do annual training with them. The Black Hawk that you see out here today that you can go look at, and our Chinooks, and all of the support staff that go with that have been really phenomenal. Just last season, our National Guard partners delivered over 2 million gallons of water to wildfires in South Carolina with Bambi buckets. These partners are out there training with us and taking that risk and going into a really bad situation to help us on the ground and keep fires from becoming bigger and threatening more people, and that's outstanding for us. I'd also like to take a minute to talk about Dauntless. Scott mentioned Dauntless Aviation, Dauntless Air. We worked on a contract to get us some air support that was contracted in our control in South Carolina. The last time we had that was in 1994. So we had 30 years or so where our firefighters didn't have anybody dedicated to call unless we got the National Guard, which is not an everyday occurrence, right? So having access to aircraft that can bring us water with the goal that every fire starts small. The smaller we can get there and the smaller we keep that fire, the less risk it is for us as firefighters, the less risk it is to people, and the less risk it is to houses and infrastructure. So having Dauntless Aviation as our contractor and been an excellent partner with us, stationed here at Owens Field for most of the time, ready to launch at any given day within 15 minutes of us giving them a call, and being anywhere in South Carolina in less than an hour to deliver water to wildfire, to try and keep it small, keep it away from houses, and provide protection for our firefighters is an outstanding tool for us to have. Just last year on the Covington Drive fire, the Table Rock Complex, and other fires, Dauntless was able to bring over 300,000 gallons of water to firefighters on the ground and protect communities. I think we need to applaud that. I'd like to recognize too the South Carolina Firefighters Association has been a good partner for us. Not only do they communicate between us and the fire departments and help us legislatively with some of our goals, supporting our request for this funding to get the equipment and the contract for the aircraft, and keeping our firefighters well equipped and positioned within our fire service. Jamie, thank you for being here. Ashley, thank y'all. And I'd like to talk too about Blanchard Machinery. They have been the vendor that's provided almost all of our dozers. The Caterpillars you see behind us all came from Blanchard, and we could not have asked for a better vendor to provide us equipment. I would say that they have gone above and beyond. This was a big, long-term commitment from them to make dozers that are not your typical dozer, equipped for firefighting, to do the special things that we ask them to do. And it takes a big commitment from them to support us with repairs and improvements over time. So let's give Blanchard an applause. And the last partnership I really want to stress is this piece of ground we're on right now at Hamilton Owens Field. We approached them last fall before last, and said, hey, we've got these aircraft that are coming in to help us fight fire, and we need a place to make them home. And I approached Peter Savalos here, as the airport general manager, and Peggy Robertson with Eagle Aviation out here, and said, we would like to place them here because this is a central location. Our goal is to have these aircraft positioned somewhere where they can get out easily, get anywhere in the state quickly, have a base of operations to set up and be equipped with everything they need to launch as fast as possible to go get the water on the fires, right? So having that partnership, access to the airport, really great support. Anything we've needed has been helped, by them locally and their staff. Made it a fantastic place for us to base the aircraft. Outstanding, everything I've asked for. I thank you, Peter, for that. You've done everything we've asked and beyond. So I think this is a huge partnership, a benefit to our agency and the public and the county and everybody around here. So thank you, Peter. So I'll turn it back to Scott, but I appreciate you being here. This is a huge deal for the firefighters. My goal as the fire chief is to get everybody home at night safely without anybody getting hurt, and this is a huge step that will help us for years to come. So thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thanks everybody for being here this morning. I do want to give an opportunity for any of our dignitaries or elected officials, if y'all would like to make any brief comments.
Never miss an opportunity, right?
Thank you, sir.
No politician ever misses a good opportunity to say a few words. So thank y'all for what you're showing us here today. I've been in the House since 2010. I've been a volunteer fireman since 1977 in North Augusta. And I've been run out of the governor's office once. We were dealing with Gene and trying to get these new bulldozers. And I won't call any names, but when we went to her office, Representative Simmerl and I, Simmerl was on Ways and Means. He said, "Hickson, you're a volunteer fireman. Why don't you come with me to the governor's office and let's tell her why we need these bulldozers?" And so we went in there and we got to talking. She said, Representative Hickson said, "Why do you need so many?" I said, "Ma'am," I said, "have you ever been in a fire?" She said, "No." I said, "Don't you know how hot it is?" She could imagine, yeah. And I said, "These bulldozers got rubber hoses, hydraulic lines. We needed braided lines. We needed a capsule where they can breathe and have the air." I said, "Because I think we're one of the only states that have open capsule bulldozers." And that was right about the same time we were finishing up the fire in Myrtle Beach or trying to get it out. But I said, we almost lost some men and women down there, and I think we lost several bulldozers. I said, there's no sense in that. And I said, we got to have these, and we got to have the good trucks to be able to get them to where they need to go. And she said, I'm against it, and this meeting's over. So we left. I mean, I saw a door now I've never been out before. I didn't know that was that many doors to escape the governor's office. But Simmerl said, "Wow," said, "You're not scared?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm a fireman, and I know how hot fires are." I said, "We call on them in North Augusta when we get a big fire down there to help us, and I know how helpful they are." I said, "This is what we need." So we passed it, and I think she vetoed it, and I think we overrode the veto, like absolutely overrode it. But I just want to tell you, I enjoy being in ag. I started there in 2010, and forestry comes to us, and I really like being there and helping y'all, because I know how hot a fire is, and I know how we need a good equipment to protect the rest of our state. So I appreciate the invitation to be able to hear today and be able to see. I didn't know we had a bulldozer that big. That's a nice Caterpillar, man. But anyway, I appreciate it very much. And if you need anything, my staff, we got Riley and Ellie over here. They back me up to try to make me look good. And anyway, we'll be glad to help you any way we can in ag and anywhere in the House of Representatives. So thank you very much for having me here.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. That concludes our presentation for this morning. We do have these folks standing around in the yellow shirts and the no-makes pants. They're going to come over here to this piece of equipment, and they can just go by, take a look at all the equipment there. I think they're going to open the gates where y'all can go out and take a look at the aircraft that are here as well. Go out, socialize. We also have coffee and donuts over here. Our firefighters can talk to you about each one of those pieces of equipment, and then the Dauntless guys can talk to you about the seats, the single engine air tankers. Very impressive aircraft, and the National Guard folks back there can talk to you about the Black Hawk and the Bucket. And so please enjoy yourself. Go around, take a look at this new equipment that we've got. We appreciate everybody being here this morning. So thank you.